Hello, you Saw freaks and everybody. Welcome to GV 580. More importantly, the Saw X, Saw 10, the 10th Saw, whatever you want to call it, review. I am the big bad booty daddy, Trav Snail, and I'm joined by.
I am the football star, Dylan Muss.
I'm the life coach, Taylor Field.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very fun one because if you're new, you probably have noticed anyways if you've been subscribed to the feed. But in case this is your first time, listening to us, if you are new, we have published them all back, but we here are all massive Saw fans. I said there's a few corners of the things that we own. I feel like that. I still feel like we're the biggest Marvel Alliance fans. I feel like we're definitely the biggest Midnight Suns fans. Like me and Dylan got I feel like there's certain avenues in video games and movies and stuff where it's like this is our pocket. This is stuff that no one's doing all these retros and stuff. I'm sure they are, but the passion, how it comes up, and that's how it starts. So years ago in the lead up to Jigsaw, we did a retrospective, then we reviewed Jigsaw, and then in the middle of COVID we reviewed Spiral. So if you're curious, if you like this, like, hey, I like their thoughts, or I want to see what they thought about these other ones, there's even like a Saw rankings in there, but that's really out of date, so I didn't really upload that one. But we have reviewed every film, all 9 Saw films. Us 3 have been on with a slew of other people on and stuff. So if you want, go check those out. But just to cut to the point, we are big Saw fans, so we've been excited, to see this. And the last time Saw came out, we didn't get it in even theaters. It was just VOD. Didn't even come to BC. So it's literally been since Jigsaw. And luckily, Taylor didn't have no smoking, coughing guy beside him this go around. So that was a good thing. Check out our Jigsaw review because that's like. I think that Jigsaw, funny enough, I think that was one of the first reviews that Taylor gave a fail to, or gave like a
might be the first, actually.
I think it might be the first, and we don't know if it was the movie or the experience. But either way, go listen to the podcast. So yeah, as usual, we're gonna do our non-spoilers. We're just gonna tell you what you thought because I know there's the Creator out this weekend. There's Paw Patrol. There's lots of things going on. So I know there's people that are seeing this Saturday, Sunday, that are listeners. As usual, the first 15-20 minutes, all spoiler-free. If you're waiting, same thing. Maybe you didn't like Jigsaw. Maybe you didn't like Spiral. Is this worth the price of admission? Well, you're about to find out. And I'm going to let Mr. Muss lead us off. What did you think about Saw 10? Got Tobin Bell back, Shawnee Smith back. Essentially, for people that don't know up to this point, this is kind of a Saw 2. It takes place in between Saw 1 and Saw 2. So it's one of these things that it's a weird, I would still say watch it after 2 as well, because I feel like there's some big reveals in there that wouldn't make sense. So I feel like it can kind of work in many places. But like I said, big Saw fan. You were somebody that watched it for the retro and watched a bunch of them together. And now it's been, like I said, have you watched any Saw films since Spiral, ask?
No, definitely not. It was definitely a fever dream experience going through that retro. Watching, I had watched the first Saw once before, but then watching them all again through for the retro, and most of them I watched multiple times to just have that full experience of, okay, I want to watch it once through blind and then once through now that I know what the twists are and see how that affects it. So it was like a huge pocket of just watching a ton of Saw, and then obviously that was kind of leading up to Jigsaw. Spiral came out, and yeah, I feel like I've just never really revisited these. So even this last weekend, shoutouts to our patrons who joined us on After 9, and we talked about Saw a lot. And you guys were talking about all sorts of theories and characters and plot lines and stuff, and most of it went right over my head. I'm like, I don't even remember all of these specific details that you guys are going into here. So maybe I should have done some rewatching, but when you have 9 other movies, that's a lot of work to do that for this new one coming out. But yeah, so I feel like I went in with not like lower hype level. I was still excited, but I don't know. I guess I could have been more hyped if I had just watched all those and been like, okay, here's exactly what happens in Saw 1 and 2 and 3, and this is where it fits in the timeline. But anyway, I think part of the reason why I haven't gone back and rewatched those is because we've been in like a bit of a rough stretch here. Obviously 7 was quite a while ago, but 7 into Jigsaw, into Spiral. I think I like Spiral more than other people on our review, if I remember correctly, but still then it's not like a great Saw movie.
I don't think any of us have it in our top tier Saw movies.
Yeah.
I think we all liked it and passed it, but I don't think we're like, this is the top 3.
It gets the job done, but it's not like that creamy Saw juice that we're all looking for. So I can happily say that I like Saw is back, baby. I really had a great time with this. I had a really, really fun time at the theater with this one. I think I feel like in some of I feel like almost all the Saw movies have either some just not great acting or just some weird characters that don't really need to be there. But I feel like this one had some really good characters and some better acting for like what would be like normal, smaller, weirder characters. All the traps and all that good stuff is fun. I think in terms of like the plot twists, which is like that's what we come to the Saw movies, or we maybe come for all the weird gore and serial killer stuff, but that's what we're staying for is all the cool plot twists and how it connects things together. I don't think this one has those big, huge revelation moments like some of those earlier Saw movies and maybe my favorite ones. But it still has like multiple kind of twists, and I feel like even though I kind of saw a couple things coming, which is not typical for me watching these Saw movies, I still, when they finally click things into place and a couple more things, I'm like, I'm ready to come into this review and be like, oh, this is a plot twist here. But then they like just wrap up all these loose ends. So I feel like in that way, yeah, it didn't necessarily blow me away, but it was just, maybe that's what they needed. Maybe they just need to go back to basics a little bit and just like really hone in and not jump the shark and so to speak. So yeah, I had a really great time with this. I'm really, really happy to have like another great Saw movie in the repertoire. And this really just, like tonally in terms of like the camera angles and all the frantic camera, like it feels like it fits nicely in that pocket of those earlier Saw movies too. So it definitely fits in that place of like being a replacement, whatever you want to call it, for Saw 2 in the timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go next because, minor spoilers. I'm pretty much in line with Mr. Muss here. I have a different experience. Also, go back to the first one, but I saw the first Saw on a DVD, kind of like saw the trailers. Just want to know, for me, as I said before, it's always Billy the Puppet was what brought me in. Mm-hmm. And when I went to Saw, I thought it was going to be a completely supernatural thing because you go back and watch those trailers, it's the pig face, it's Billy the Puppet, and it's like, what's going on here? And that's completely something different. And this was in the era, I've always said 2006 is when I changed my liking, and I watched this about 2005. And then from there on, it was dragging my dad to see these things in theaters. And he liked/hated them because the gore, he could only take so much of at times. But so yeah, I'm a massive fan. And just like Dylan said, 7 to me was just a sin. 7 really hurt me. I rewatched that, and since then it's been all over the place. Jigsaw, I think, is a better made film, but I still didn't really enjoy that for lore purposes. Like Dylan just said, Spiral, it passed the test, and I liked it, but I will say on rewatches, I haven't enjoyed it as much, so I have been waiting to fall in love with Saw again, and I think it does help. It's not like a big surprise. It does help that, yes, Shawnee Smith, but specifically Tobin Bell is back, and in a massive role. Like those last few sequels, he was in there, but a couple flashbacks and that was it. If you look at 6 and 7, there's not much. He is kind of the heart of this franchise, and it's tough because I understood why they killed him off so long ago. They kind of wanted to end it and be a big shock, but this is one of these type of films where you go, man, if you had a time machine, maybe we should have never done that. It's like I respect Lee Winnall and James Wan because they created it, but obviously they created it, they stopped at 3, and then they went on to do a bunch more after. And I when I watched this, I was like, man, I wonder what that reality is where they never killed off John Kramer and all the movies were just him in a bigger role. And I think that helps a lot. And I think that Tobin Bell brings it. I think we said that with Jigsaw, even though it's like, oh, hey, he's doing good, but there's not too much for him. They gave him a lot here. This is a John Kramer movie more than it is a Saw movie. Even the pacing we'll get into is unlike anything else they've done, and that's one thing I'll give them credit for. Is this is the 10th one, and this is the first one for a while. Like near the end, I'd say like 5 because I just rewatched all 5, 7, even some elements of 6. But Jigsaw, they started to get in that route of this. They're just repeating the same format of one person goes room to room, saves some people, doesn't save some people, somehow tied to John Kramer, and here we go. There's an element of that, but even the way they chronologically tell the story, very, very different than what they've done in other Saw movies, and just some certain traps were good, some twists. I think that's where I'm in line with Dilno, where it's tough because I would take this over. Even though I like Spiral, I would take this over Spiral because like I love the John Kramer character. I wasn't really that interested in the killer that they gave us as the replacement, and Jigsaw, not so much there. I think I would take this over those if they said, hey, we're gonna try and do these new ones, or we're gonna do Saw 11. It's gonna be another in this pocket of time with Tobin Bell. I take Saw 11. The only problem is with these pockets of time, there's only so much they can do in like those grand big twists. Like they can't affect the story that much with Amanda and Jigsaw and Hoffman and Dr. Gordon. Like with those sequels, it was always like, oh, who's going to come to play this one? Who's going to figure out this? With this, we kind of have the story, right? So it's just kind of like a weekend with John Kramer. And if you like that, if you like the Saw traps, if you like the character, I think you specifically are really going to like this one. I think this is one of the I'm willing right now to, I'd say, put like in the top 4. I need to think about it, but it's in the upper echelon. I think you could maybe argue it's like the best one since the first one, just in a well-made structure. But yeah, there's some twists or there's some traps that maybe do the whole like, ugh, like, and that's good. You want that because sometimes I feel like, oh, I've seen it all, and haven't. And I think there wasn't a big reliance on CGI.
You were squeaming in your seat at one point.
There's one in particular where it's just like, oh my god, like you just think about it, and especially on the big screen, like that. These movies are made for just having 20 feet of just brain in your face. So overall, I had a really good time with this. Yes, as a Saw fan, I'm really pleased with this one, and I don't know where like if I will watch it in a chronological order in the future. I think I'll do this experiment to try to watch this after 2 and see how it would play. Because yes, of course, many of these actors do not look, they're not doing the Disney Star Wars DH thing. They're putting wigs on these people and they're saying, oh, this is Amanda and Tobin Bell 20 years younger. Like, I guess, but you just go with it because you're having a good time. So I think if you're a Saw fan, you'd love it. I think Taylor asked me this, Dylan. I would say I didn't think so. Muds didn't go to this, right?
Absolutely not. She actually saw Spiral with a friend who took her, and she did not like. This. She did not like Spiral whatsoever. She's also not in town right now, but she would not have come anyway.
Okay, and
I would have told her no. You do not want to see this.
And not to check out his letterbox and join our Discord. I'm very excited to see what Clay thinks about this because he's only seen Saw 1. I think for the most part, it's pretty accessible to everybody. There's a few character beats that you'll probably miss and go, oh, I wish I knew more there. But for the most part, you can just jump in and be like, oh, here's the adventure, here's the story. It's pretty straightforward. And I think they do a great job, too, of adding a couple of good wrinkles with John Kramer and Amanda of like, oh, this tracks exactly where they are. So, Mr. Field, how did you feel about Saw X?
I was pleasantly surprised. I really, really was. I really wasn't sure what we were going to get in here aside from what I knew in the trailers, and not a spoiler, but it just seems like a little bit of a revenge story. You take that as you will. But I was really happy with how things unfolded. I was really happy with how the narrative changed in the previous iterations. I feel like, okay, you're really getting the narrative brought to you by our survivors or people going through this tribulation. And that is completely flipped on a dime. Like you said, Travis, and I agree with that. It's like a weekend with John Kramer. And I mean, maybe not the most like relaxing of weekends, but a weekend nonetheless.
Real busy weekend. Real busy. John Kramer continues to be the horror version of Batman. The amount of time this man gets things done and can, like, we'll talk about the spoilers. It's just like, you got to definitely suspend your disbelief. It's not Saw 1 level still where it's like, oh, just a Saw in a bathroom. There's a couple traps and you were like, okay, how did he pull this off? He just
he's got a lot of help.
He does, man.
He's one of the most trusting people I think you could say. He's always true to his word. I guess. But yeah, it's just overall, I think the movie definitely has some of those moments where I was like I got my eyes open, but like one is like half closed. It's like, oh, this is rough, but I feel very satisfied. I feel very content, and I feel like this is definitely on the uptick by a large increment from Jigsaw, from Spiral. And I understand they were trying like different things with those films and trying to feel it out, but my thought is that this will be on the more positively received end of the Saw movies because of the narrative that they tackled. And I think that if you were to do more of those, I don't even know if you call it an anthology, just the stories that have yet to be explored in the Saw universe, I think that there's a lot of potential with that. I do think that since they did kill off John Kramer back in Saw 3, that was always a blow for me because I thought, well, it's John Kramer, it's Jigsaw. But of course, we see several sequels as to why it's not really the end of Jigsaw. I digress, though.
Okay, that was a strange part. That was a strange way to end it right there. Okay. Well, and that's what I'll ask you, and then I'll ask Dylan the same thing. Are you fine with if let's say this does well and they do a Saw 11, are you just fine with them just trying to do, let's find this weekend, let's find this week and add a story here? Because again, it's going to be, it always went from, oh, this guy got cancer, he kind of was alive for only a few months, did all this stuff, and even after he was dead, all this stuff continued. But you're fine with, them keep adding, oh, this week he also did this, and this week he also did this, because these are not small things. He's in New Mexico, there's many victims here, it's not just like a little retreat.
Also,
oh, go ahead.
For me, it's like Saw is not sacred, so I don't really give a shit. Like they can do a million of these, they can do 100 other shitty ones, and then 5 other good ones, and that'll be fine with me. It's not like when I see anything new with Lord of the Rings, and it's like, oh, I don't know about this. Like I don't want this to taint my perspective of this thing. With Saw, like whatever. Yeah, you're gonna get some crap. Even the ones that I love are still like sometimes really bad and poorly made, or like have some bad acting and weird stuff in there. So for me, I'll take whatever. I'm down for it.
I'm very interested to see different stories they do, and I was thinking about this while I was watching the movie, actually, like how obscure of an idea would it be to do something with Jigsaw being like young? And obviously you don't have John Kramer.
You can't do that.
Like I'm trying to remember, and my memory is very convoluted because I wasn't sure, like, did he become this after the fact when his wife went through that period and then the cancer came and everything?
He is at least a 50-plus-year-old man when his life changes. Yes, so you can't.
That's what happened. Okay.
I'll draw the line there. I don't need 20-year-old John Kramer experimenting on traps with like a camp counselor and then being like, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore, and then picking it back up. I don't want that stuff. Let's not go there. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think for me, the camp I'm at, I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm fine to keep doing these as long as Tobin Bell is with us. And then I think when Tobin Bell's not with us, you do a complete reboot and start over. And I'm not saying remake Saw 1 and do Dr. Gordon Adam. I'm just saying clean sweep the whole lore and just be like, okay, this is this one franchise. And you can beat John Kramer again. I mean, you can find something else. But I think the idea of this kind of storyline, you can't do it without him per se. And I know they try with Jigsaw and Spider, and I just don't think people went to those because I think every time it was like, oh, well, it's not Tobin Bell, it's not Amanda, it's not Hoffman. We're missing these key players. Where if you reboot and say, hey, those characters aren't around, we're starting over, and Bryan Cranston or somebody's playing John Kramer now, that's where you can go. So that's who Tobin Bell says who should play him. So I'll take his word for it. Yeah, so that's what I think you should do, because I think this movie proved that Tobin Bell, who is a very underrated actor, like he's not been in many things. It's just because Saw blew him up and they were lucky that it hit. But I think he shows he still has it. Same thing with Shawnee Smith. So that's where I am, is give me more of these. I do miss the idea of going forward, but this one showed it was a good enough time that I'm down for some more. There has to be lots of victims out there, so keep plugging away. Anything else to say before we get into the spoilers?
Good score.
Yeah, very good score. I was I guess it's like a minor spoiler, but what I liked about it is I'd say for the first 15 minutes of the movie, it's pretty much a normal movie, and they took original Saw scores that was very scary and high octane music and brought it down to make it sound like elevator music, or like just like regular nice like cooking show music, but when you listen to it, it was like Saw themes, and Hello Zep was really well done. So Charlie Clouser, big shout to him, and even Hello Zep, of course, that comes in again. And this man's had to change that theme. Like this is the 10th time. And it's like there's still little variations to it. It's like, man, good for you trying to find still a way to be like, how do we change this? And they do. So there you go. Well, good.
Well, I was just say. Oh, go ahead.
That's number
Taylor,
2.
Me and you keep wanting to talk at the same time. I guess just for me, like I feel like the technical stuff across the board was really well done. Like the cinematography, the music, the sound effects. I think maybe my one thing would be just like some of the sound mixing. Like there's a few lines and characters that I couldn't understand what they're saying. A bit of John Kramer just because he's like old and mumbles a lot. But even another character in a certain moment where I need to ask you guys a question about this, because I was like, I don't know what she said, and I'm really curious what she said in that moment. So, but I mean, that's something like I'll watch it with subtitles later and I'll be fine. But I was impressed in that way, because I feel like the Saw movies can kind of go up and down in terms of how good they look and sound, but this one was solid in that way.
Yeah, I agree with you at the beginning. There was times where I wasn't sure if it was our theater speakers or not. It was like a lot quieter. It got better as it went on, but No, I also agree with cinematography. That's because that's something when I rewatch Spiral, it's something like the traps just don't. They're just not shot well. Like they're not like memorable. They don't have that intensity. But I think they did a good job. Obviously, this guy Kevin Garrett, he directed this. He directed Saw 6, the best sequel in my opinion, and Saw 7, the worst sequel. So I didn't know what I was going to get. But he's also edited every Saw from since Saw 1 until he started
wow.
directing. So he's a guy obviously has lots of, not counting Jigsaw and Spiral, but he was with the franchise from the 1 to the original 7.
Right.
So lots of experience with this guy. Taylor, you're gonna say?
Nice.
I was to say, yeah, you mentioned that Tobin Bell became kind of prominent because of the Saw franchise. I was just curious and looked it up. I did not know he was in that animated film, The Road to El Dorado, which is a great movie. He has a short appearance in that as the original owner of the map of El Dorado, plays Dice. So
Yep. I know he's in Seinfeld as well. I know that's a thing. I
he's
watched
in
that episode.
Seinfeld
He has one episode or something. Like, yeah,
as a Jigsaw.
yeah, he's testing. Fuck, I'd pay good money to see that. No, it's one of those things that is really crazy. This guy, like, pretty practically, he's a character actor, but really a nobody actor. And you look at Saw 1, he's just the voice and the guy on the floor. And the fact that this blew up and, like, made his career. And again, I feel like because of this, he kind of gets a little typecast. So it's kind of tough that you don't see him in much because he's going to play, like, the creepy guy, but he can do a good job. So I'm really happy for him. I'm happy to see him back because I feel like it hasn't really been since Saw 5 since we've gotten a real big John Kramer spread. You know, that was the origin of Hoffman. So that was like a lot of them. But after that, it was a lot of backseat and lots of course, he's getting those nice checks for the voice and everything. He's doing the video games too and stuff. So
Yeah.
you got all that. So all right, so we're getting into spoilers. So if you've not seen the movie, if you're waiting, now's the time to bow out. It'll be in the feeds, whether it's the GV feed or the review feeds. We'll be right back. And we're back. And quick little plugs before I forgot to do them. Everything you need to know is down below. Our video, our audio. Head over to Patreon. You can get stuff early. Soon we'll be doing our Halloween retrospective. We will be doing It Follows. That won the Patreon poll. So that'll be lots of fun. You get a slew of X-Men retros up there. You got side quests right now. You got not really newscasts, but you got Loki happening next week, Ahsoka finale. So lots of good jazz and lots of things you can find that we do. So we appreciate the support and thank you very much. And I think in a week or two there'll be the After 9 because After 9 is a little earlier this month because I guess I'll promote here. Extra Life is a month away and we haven't set our goal or anything like that yet. But tune in. Let me quickly see. It's the first Saturday of November, which is, what is that? That's the 4th. So Saturday 4th, we're going to be staying for 24 hours, raising charity or raising money for BC Children's Hospital charity. Going to be lots of fun events. Stay tuned. Lots of good stuff. So I want to start because this is what we kind of all talked about and Taylor brought it up and this was a good point. Just the way the film, the pacing of it and the way it's told, that's where every movie, like Taylor was saying, it's usually from the victim's perspective. And what happens is people will wake up in the traps, will meet a character, and then flash back to where they are. But this was told in chronological order of him, John Kramer getting the results or getting some new results. He's getting a scan to going to cancer group, to meeting somebody, to the con, to the traps. It all happens in direct order, which I don't think that's ever happened in a Saw movie. I just rewatched them all and I really don't. Maybe the closest is like Spiral, but even then Spiral has so many flashbacks still to the past, like Chris Rock when he was a young cop or Sam Jackson when he was a young cop. This is like there's not too many flashbacks either. So what do you guys think about that, of like this idea of we're not doing the classic, oh, let's chronologically mix everything up? It was a point A to point B, and I think it was a good move to change it up for being the 10th film. So
Go ahead, Taylor.
This time they don't talk. Oh my god.
I enjoyed it. Subconsciously I probably clicked that okay, this is different, but like I didn't click with that like fully aware until you mentioned it. Like, oh yeah, you make a good point. That is a different dynamic from what they did before. But I liked it. I liked the setup from point A to point B and how it was a very character building slow and not in a bad way slow, but slow beginning to this film that just really built up to where we got, as opposed to just like, oh, this person's just waking up in a trap, like you said, and it's like, okay, we're 1 to 100. But it just had a lot of character, and I felt like a lot of connection where I could really connect to John Kramer through this, and I think that as we go from point A to point B to C throughout this in that chronological order, it helps me connect to John Kramer a lot more, and it's in a different way because, like you said, we've never had it. So we've never had a story focused on Kramer this much as Kramer being the main head honcho here. Usually, it's one of our survivors that you're rooting for, you're engaged with, or you're following. And I'm not to say that there's other characters and survivors in here that you're not rooting for, because there was one which I kind of was like, maybe I felt like how Amanda felt, like, oh, like I'm hoping she can kind of like pull through or something like that. But yeah, it just Saw happens. But I think
Saw happens.
Saw happens.
Where
Saw
were you
happens.
when Saw happened? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it's I also similar to like feel like I didn't really clue in on that just because once again it's been so long since I watched these other movies that I haven't actively been thinking about that part of it. But it did stand out to me the first 15, 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour of this movie, and just that like, wow, this feels very, very different than anything we've had before. This is a much more like grounded personal story of this person going through this, just dealing with the medical, like the diagnosis that they've been given and how they handle that. And which I think is obviously, so I think it's good. I'm curious how that will work on people who don't already care about that character. Like you're saying, like people who maybe have just watched Saw 1 and nothing else, or people who aren't really into Saw stuff at all. And if they'll be invested and want to find out about this guy, or if they'll find that section to be a bit bland, I'm not sure. And obviously it all pays off kind of in the end because you're getting introduced to all these characters who are going to end up being relevant to the plot later when we get to the bigger plot twists and whatnot. But yeah, I got to say, like, that in terms of the pacing of it, felt super different. Of course, they still have like they sneak it into the first 5 minutes of you get that trap scene.
Yeah.
And I found also if I want to do a quick side tangent on that, I thought it was interesting that was like the big one in the poster, and I feel like maybe I don't know the trailers so much, but showing a little bit of that trap with the eye sucking thing, and that's just like not even a real trap,
No.
right? I mean, we've had that before too, right? Wasn't it like the pain train, which was like all in his head?
Yeah,
or
the
something
pain
like that?
train. Yeah,
The
that was
classic
in
pain train.
Jill's head. Jill's head. She had a nightmare
Right,
about
sorry,
it.
yeah, Jill's head. So yeah, we've had that before too, but I guess that was maybe they were thinking about like how could we possibly fit a trap into the first 5 minutes of this movie when we're trying to tell this other more slow burn sort of story, and that was the way to do it. But yeah, then to kind of brand the movie around that and make that your poster once again, kind of an interesting idea.
I think 100% it just reminds me of like an action or Bond movie where it's like, we need something here to start. And that's where, because like, you don't really have to have them. Like they do the whole trap sequence, everything, which I will say, I will, I'll save it for, he's just segment on the retro. We'll talk about the traps, but one of the easier traps, in my opinion, like I'm passing that one for sure. Like you only lose.
Doesn't rip his fingers off.
No,
you're just
breaking
them.
them. You're just
There's no blood spilled whatsoever.
Yeah, and at first I didn't know that you had to wait a timer to like do that. I'm like, why don't you just like whoosh, and get it all done at once? But it was like you had to wait. You did have to wait. There was like because you could hear go Mrr, and then you go so that's what it was. But I was like, I'm taking one rip at that thing and going. But no, it was this guy who was trying to steal some stuff, and that was which I kind of really enjoyed this aspect of it. John Kramer a lot. There's at times in the series he reminds me sometimes, but in this movie the most he reminded me of Dexter Morgan, early Dexter Morgan, where he's doing his own life thing, but he sees this guy stealing stuff and he gets in his mind like, what could I do to this guy? It's like Dexter, he's always looking for like his next target, right? And just even the stuff like he's in the park and he's just drawing out traps, or like you guys talk about with your nickname, the life coach, when he's having that conversation with Cecilia, like, oh yeah, I help people. And it's still like same way Dexter would do that all the time. Like, oh, I'm all about like, whatever. He'd have his whole monologue, right? Michael C. Hall, hopefully not on the wig, but Michael C. Hall, this whole monologue where, Rita wouldn't know what the hell he's talking about, but we know, he's talking about killing people. Like, I really liked this kind of the double side, the double personality of John Kramer here. And I like that. And I was a little confused at one point because he was drawing the reverse bear trap, and I thought this was pre-Amanda, but I'll get to that later. There is some timeline stuff where I'm not confused.
Was that the page he ripped out? That was the rack I thought that he was drawing on that page.
Oh, could have been. I know it was a headgear. That's all we know.
Yeah, it was definitely focused on the head, but I don't know. Maybe
Which
it was the Amanda one.
There's a lot to break down, but I want to ask you guys this. So this is the story of John Kramer, right? Uh, he's a philanthropist, engineer, whatever, architect, right? That they had that multimillionaire as well, because he just could easily send $250,000 and still have a bunch of money left over. So
yeah,
he's, as I said, he is the horror version of Batman. He is loaded. But anyway, so Jill loses the baby. He finds he has cancer. His life is down and out. He tries to kill himself, doesn't. He starts to wonder, one, what can the human body survive, and two, what that experience does for you, right? And it's supposed to help you. Did you guys buy? And I'm not even sure how I feel, if I'm for it or not for it. At this point, he thinks he's cured, right? And he's drawn the traps, and then he kind of rips them up and he starts to draw other things, find things out. Did you guys take John Kramer as a character that if he was healed, he would have gave up doing the jigsaw thing? Because I feel like they're trying to insinuate that, like, if he was actually better, he was gonna give it up, which I never got that sense from him in the past, where even if they came to him and said, hey John, you're cancer free, I feel like he was still so laser focused on the games and the story that he would have. Or I don't know if he was just ripping a page up randomly, but I took it they were trying to insinuate that, oh, he's healthy, he's gonna leave this all behind. Granted too, he already has Amanda, Hoffman, and Gordon, he already has these people, and he's gonna give up. So I'm not sure what you guys took from that scene, where he kind of, after he's healthy, ripped up his trap pages.
That's an interesting what if scenario for sure, to see what this alternate life path could be. I don't know. I feel like at this point, his mind is just like so distorted, turned into a just disgusting soup that I feel like eventually he would have got back to it, just because he would have, like how we encountered that guy in the hospital, and then his mind is just like, oh, what freaky shit could I do? He would encounter something. He would encounter something much worse that someone is doing, probably because he's already looking into it and tracking people, and he would uncover something. And I think that he would just somehow convert that into his new narrative of like, I was given another chance at life. Aren't you gonna do the same thing? Like he would just weave that into his new narrative in some way. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it would put him on ice for a bit. Maybe he would take a year off and he would go to the Bahamas or something. But I think eventually he would start doing his dirty deeds again.
Kind of like how Dexter would quit 3 to 4 times, but then he's back at the table. I could buy that, because we've talked about that before, where I love the John Kramer character, but there are I don't consider them not inconsistencies. I just consider them as sometimes he's a little egotistical, that he thinks he's completely doing the right thing, but there are some holes in the game where you go, oh well,
again, if we want to include every Saw movie and all of his motivations for all the kills, then you got to say, come on, man, you're really losing the plot here.
Yeah. What about you, Taylor? Did you think he would have gave it up if he was healthy, or just a minor thought?
Well, I think that the showrunners, the
whoa, what did you
the
want?
team was definitely trying to insinuate that he was going to give it up. And I definitely detected that, but at the same time, I thought, he probably was just, while he was working away at his plans, because he didn't rip out all the pages. There were plans, obviously, but sketches behind
true.
that
He just
page.
ripped out one page, right?
He just ripped out one page. So I think, he just was in the moment, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'm so happy to be alive. I have time for this. I'll come back to it later, and I'm going to go do something
I got to get this wine to Gabriella. That's how it happened. He was going to drop off a bottle of wine or whatever the alcohol was. Yeah, tequila,
Not to derail too far from the John Kramer part, but do you find it weird how when he goes to that mansion to check it out, why they trash the frames, the pictures on the walls and stuff like that?
Well, it could have not been them, maybe, right? That could have been other homeless people sleeping there when it was diluted and gone, right? If you leave, if you were to leave a house, if I were to leave this house for, again, that I think that's where classic Saw. I have minor issues with the timeline, nothing big. It's just the idea of it does happen so fast. Where
I guess it does. Yeah.
Kramer gets this, operation, revealed that it doesn't have an operation. They put him under anesthesia. They show that he's getting brain surgery. It's just a YouTube video. It's something else because it's taking place in 2003 technically. But anyway, so it's revealed to be a con, and then I at first thought what was going to happen was that it was going to be revealed to be a con, and then sometime later he would catch up back. Between one guy showing his scar, which we'll get into, being they didn't even cut. They're trying to insinuate that it all happens pretty close together. So just the idea of Taylor talking about when they leave and everything's trash, I could buy over some time, but I guess you're telling me in a night? Some homeless people just come in here and mess it up? Maybe. And again, you guys suspend your disbelief, but the fact that I guess, he has Hoffman, but he calls the big bad booty daddy, we'll talk about later, and says, oh, detective, I have some people that need some learning and stuff. The fact that he calls him, gets Amanda to Mexico, gets all his traps, which Taylor told me in the car he probably built in Mexico, which I guess, Billy the Puppet, I think that's one thing I wish that maybe there was a time where he went back to America and then came back for them. The fact that it all happened within, like I said, this weekend is to me a little eye rolling. Even the way they pulled off the con, like Taylor's talking about, like, why is the place just already such a mess? Like, what is the situation? Again, I don't try to poke too much holes into it because I still enjoy it overall, but there is some stuff where I go, like, maybe just add some time in between her, because they still kidnap that taxi driver guy. Like, there's a lot of things that go down in a very small amount of time. So
yeah, and some of those traps are pretty complex. You'd think that the time required to set up all that, and especially too, I felt like he would probably at least wait until he's taken all of his meds, his like 7 days worth of meds before he goes anywhere. He would chill until that point. Obviously, it's all fake anyway, but he didn't know that at the time. So
yeah,
I found even that part surprising. That's probably worthy criticism.
Why wouldn't you just be surveying me? I know these test results are here, but shouldn't I be hanging out?
Yeah, what about that nurse
bit?
who was supposed to be looking after him? Is she gonna be in the sequel? Is she gonna get
Saw
it
11,
too?
yeah.
The guys that held him up on gunpoint from the van, they'll be in the sequel too.
There's still some loose threads for sure in this whole plan. What about the dad? Like, can we do side tangent on that? Like the dad who created this like, experimental treatment. Yeah. Like, how does he fall into this? I couldn't understand if he had died and then the daughter was like taking over his legacy, or if he's still out there doing stuff and she is just using her name, or maybe she's not even related to him and that's all part of it. Like, I feel like I'm missing a little something there.
So I think it's the second where I think he is still alive, because they did say that they could phone him and stuff. Maybe they're lying, of course. Yeah. But for the first half of the movie, I thought he was dead. I swear they said or insinuated something that he had died, because she's like, oh, and carrying on her father's work or something like that. But I just take it that...
But can you trust that, though? Because that whole video was a setup by the guy, like Henry or whatever his name was. Like, it was all staged. So it could have just been all fake.
But Amanda did say to John, remember, she's like, the dad is real and I know he's real, and she could call him. So Amanda, who a great detective now, apparently, like she, according to her, that dad is at least a real person. If it's her dad, whatnot, who knows, but he is a real doctor. So she's using it some way. I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to be his daughter, right? If she's just a con artist, she's just using it. And they at one point say that they've taken $8 million away from people. So that's quite a hefty amount.
Patients, right? Something like
yes. That. Yeah. Which I found interesting. That's where I did like the shift, where this movie, more than any, I feel like all the movies, for the most part, at times they make John Kramer a hero, but majority it's always down the line of he's doing bad things, but you see his reasoning even though they're still bad. I feel like this movie was really trying to make him the hero of the story, and that's fine with me. And I think I like it more in the end, because my issue in the middle was all these characters we've been in these Saw movies, of course, they've done something shady, but there's still something good about them, or you're rooting for them. The way they presented these characters, I was not really rooting for any of the victims. I was like, when they lay it all out of not only are you taking their money, you're taking their hope, but you're also taking like money away from their families and their children that could be using this. So that's where I was surprised. Like, I'm like, they've given none of these characters really any redeeming qualities. And that's where I don't want to shift to, I just want to be torture porn. I just want them to die. But then when it kind of shifts to Cecilia and Teddy's the guy's name, right? I think it was Teddy, or was it something else?
Oh god, Teddy. It's like Pierce or something was his last name, maybe.
I'll look it up. But anyways, the two like main con artists, when it switched to them like turning the tables on John and Amanda, that's where it worked for me, them being complete shitbags. Because if it was the other route, I didn't really care about them, because like at least usually there's like, oh, someone's fighting for their son, or it's like a way, it's like, okay, Dr. Gordon's not appreciating his family, does he deserve to be in there? I don't know, but it's like it's not terrible of a reason. This was like, yeah, this is terrible stuff. So I like that they made them so bad that you weren't really rooting. In my opinion, I wasn't really rooting for them, and at the end you weren't going to be, because it was John Kramer in full hero mode, like doing this blood trap with the boy and stuff. So I liked that dynamic in the end, where in the middle I was a little worried about it.
I definitely agree with you in the just trying to frame him more as the hero of the story. I feel like that's even like the ending of this movie is fucking like John and Amanda like rising into the stairway to heaven or something,
Yeah.
right? It's like that. I feel like that part of it seems pretty clear. I think the one that I had some sympathy for was Gabriella, and I think that was kind of intentionally done. So even from John, even though I feel like he still had some amount of sympathy for her by giving her like by far the easiest trap and like the
Yes.
easiest one to get out of, the one that will have the maybe least long-term benefits. There's also no or downsides. There's no clock. I guess the clock was she would just get burned eventually, but I felt like she had the easiest trap, and that was maybe also them kind of subconsciously giving her the easiest one that she would get out of. And the fact that like I don't know, he didn't seem too surprised. Neither of them did when she survived it, and he was like, "All right, let's get her to the hospital right away," sort of thing. So
She
I
needs
think
medical attention.
I feel like he felt like that character. He felt like Gabriella was redeemable, and obviously just in a bad place, being a drug addict and probably just being looped into this thing. Obviously, what she was doing was terrible still, but there's at least maybe a little bit more on the line. Where Cecilia just one of the most garbage human beings of all time
Yeah.
with zero redeeming qualities whatsoever.
And that's why he said if it would have been a traditional Saw movie where she's just the last victim, I wouldn't like. There's no rooting there for them at least. And
Yeah.
like I guess it's like it makes you root for John Kramer, but you should be right in this context because like he's the main character. You're following him. It's the same way of like you're trying to get him to overcome, and I guess he's the lesser of two evils. I don't know. Like they're both doing similar. Like I don't know. It's like a very mind trippy thing when you think who's worse, Cecilia or John Kramer. I think they're pretty like on the same level in a way. Probably John. I don't know. John Kramer's probably worse.
That's a debate topic right there. Bring back Geek Versus for that one.
Oh yeah,
crack it
Cecilia
down.
versus John Kramer. Yeah. What do you think, Taylor, about our cast of victims here and the morality of them?
My only sympathetic notions were directed towards Gabriella, and again, they're all bad, but I definitely agree with the things that you guys had said about her. Yeah, her regarding her trap too. The thing about just like John Kramer starts popping off about like radiation equipment and all that kind of stuff, and then you see this big like radiator device, like fuck.
Where'd he get that? Where did he get that?
Where did he get that?
I just want to see him and Amanda on the black market of Mexico just don't be like, oh, I need a radiator. Like it's just like I guess like because all their stuff was cleared out. It's not that it was left over, right? And they didn't look like they even had a radiation thing, but yeah, the radiation that and like the mask were the two things where it's like, hey, where's he getting
that
this
mask. That was brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, but he whipped it up.
It's she definitely had a more easier trap, especially considering the follow off of was like Monty or whatever the guy's
Mateo.
name was.
Mateo.
Monty Mole, yeah.
Monty.
Yeah, so she it's unfortunate that Cecilia just like axed her, but even then like you when you laugh, I laugh too, Travis, because when she did her leg first and she swung out of the way, and then the radiator just like slides over.
I knew it was coming. Because there's no way when she's like, oh, you'll just move out of the way. I'm like, there's no way John's gonna just like let this go down. Yeah.
Also, is it not the better move to do your hand? Because then you can maybe land better.
You'd
Because
land on the ground.
Either way, you're gonna take a 20-foot drop and smash into pure concrete. So wouldn't that be better to have your foot intact and you can like maybe at least land that a bit better?
Yes and no, because I wasn't sure. They made it look really high, but then when she landed, it didn't look hard at all. She looked like she just
she swung lower, didn't she?
Probably logistically, but I feel like that didn't get shown to me really.
No.
I didn't really feel like she was lower down.
No,
But
it looked
she
high.
must have been, I guess.
And her landing was just like if she tripped and fell to the ground like regular walking. Like, because if you would have done, so you were saying the hand first, and I guess the idea is maybe you want to land on your feet and brace yourself instead of just like swinging and landing head first. And either way, it didn't matter because she was pretty messed up. This movie was, I don't know why, between this and the boiler room and the end with the two people, I didn't like that aspect. They're really obsessed with like the CGI, like melting skin. Like they did it twice.
Okay.
And I didn't think they needed to do that.
Yeah, it looked a little goofy with the guy at the end in the poison room. Yeah.
Just make it. I can believe this gas is going to kill them internally. Make them bleed from their ears or eyes. I don't need them melting. But it's fine.
Yeah, sometimes they do better by like hiding that. Like I felt like
Yes.
the Mateo thing, or sorry, Monty Mole over there.
Yeah,
I feel like
Monty.
that was very effective. One, because like we had seen the imagery of that statue like before, so to get the like mask
Yeah.
version of it. But then also just like I wondered if they were gonna unveil that and show what he looked like underneath there. But I almost kind of like what they did of just leaving that mask on and just picturing, oh man, that is the smell under that thing must be just horrendous.
Poor Monte Mateo, that's his full name we're going to go with. Yeah, what poor cops are going to find this site, just bodies everywhere.
Yeah, just that one girl's body parts and her fucking guts.
Valentina. Fuck.
Our intestines, I know I'm sounding like a wireless there, but like, are they that long?
They're like 30 feet, aren't they, or something like that?
Really? So I got 30 feet of intestines in my body right now.
But I don't know if you can just whip it around a room.
That's what I was wondering. And like,
that's that's what makes
At
me
least
feel like
15
Cecilia must be like some actual amount of a doctor. The fact she cut that open and just like ripped that out and even like thought about that kind of thing, and it didn't make her squeamish at all. It makes me almost like a bare hands. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like the adrenaline's pumping. But I felt like she always seemed. She never really seemed worried after the first like 30 seconds in that room. So,
which I liked to like at that point. I was like, okay, are they just trying to make her be like the badass, strong survivor character that's gonna make it all? But I like that she would just willy nilly cut Valentina's chest open because later on she just doesn't care about people, right? She has like they're emotionally detached from people. They're just objects to make her money. So that worked, and I think it'll work even more as it goes along. And yeah, Dylan, when you said the non-spoilers, to me, the two that stood out was Valentina and Mateo as like victims, because sometimes they can be a little goofy. And trust me, like that has to be one of the hardest gigs. I know you're not getting like Robert De Niro or like Adam Driver in there, but to be one of those like traps where you got this thing and it's like you're just gonna scream for 5 minutes and like you gotta do variations of no, help me, fuck you. Like I thought Valentina and to me Mateo were like stood out like this feels really genuine and really like fantastic, like especially the Valentina girl. I was like, I want to see her in more stuff, like in little roles, because like the fact that how she acted in this scenario, I was like, okay, what can she do elsewhere? So I thought they all shared like a good amount of grim, and I guess we may as well just talk about the traps because we already kind of talk about them right now and stuff. To me the brain surgery trap, that to me was the main event. There's a lot of good ones, but everything from just the having to saw into the head, again Mateo did a good job. You just got him plucking away his brain. I don't know how that feels, but it can't feel great.
I was impressed by him to make the perfect circle with the cutting.
That's
like,
inverted settings too, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and you're watching a camera, so it's probably like flipped too, and he just crushed it. Like really high stakes.
He's an anesthesiologist, so he's a pro.
One. But he should have been 10 seconds quicker. I feel like he seemed pretty far away. It seemed like he maybe needed more brain in there to get it. I don't know if or maybe it just took more time because then he had to also get in to get the key. I don't know exactly what he was unlocking something, getting himself out of there. So he needed like another 2 minutes, I think.
He wasted a full minute yelling,
That's true.
It's classic.
That's like the thing with these games, and that's the same fate that befell Valentina. You have to make sure you take into account the post pain scenario when you gotta like get the key out or something like that.
Yeah,
you need at least an additional like 30 seconds for something like that. So
yeah, I said to Taylor when that brain surgery on, I just said I'd give up. I wouldn't even try. I'd be like, okay, it's good. I'm just gonna sit here and wait for the mask to close. Like obviously that sucked because I wasn't expecting it just to like
just not even screaming, just like
we had a good run.
My 3 minutes.
Yeah, like I wasn't expecting it to heat up or even at the sense like someone's gonna find you eventually, and that didn't work out for Adam. Adam chose to take the scenario where he was just gonna wait in the bathroom, and he just died in the bathroom. But like, I think that scenario that Valentina was in, it's like either like start the trap and you gotta saw your leg off, or get your head cut off, or you just wait here and you all die. I honestly think I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna wait and just hope for the best. I'm gonna hope that because there was a kid there already. You can't tell me. Give it a couple days, maybe someone won't find you, but someone may find you. So I think I'm taking that route. I'm going to sit there and just hope that some cops find me, and that's the route we're going. Because some of these traps, I was like, same thing with Valentina, it's like, I don't know what.
Brutal, man.
It was awful. Not only the cutting your legs, but having to like cipher your blood, and she puts
then
it
you have to
like,
do something very precise, which.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really know what bone marrow was. I always thought it was like a solid, but I guess bone marrow is like a a liquid. Is that what was going on there? And she had to like get specifically
It's
the bone marrow on the.
It can be. I think because I think some people like don't they sometimes like bake it and put it into stuff like
yeah, you can bake it.
yeah.
I baked it before and I've eaten it. It's very, very good. But
Yeah.
like,
Of,
yeah.
Animal bone marrow
Okay, okay.
specifically. Yeah, no, yeah, not they're not selling human on the market yet. So,
But yeah, like I don't know, like once again the precision of that, and that one she didn't have a camera. She just had to like stab in the right spot. It's making that cringe face very accurate.
yeah, and she's strong. I felt like she went through the bone pretty quick too.
Yeah. Were you guys a little confused when they were capturing her in that scene? I just didn't recognize the nurse as like the sex
Me
worker
either.
because she had like bigger hair. I don't know if she was wearing a wig or if her hair was just down and frizzier that day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very confused by that sequence. But then it was a good little mystery of the guy gets her in the car. But then like they smash the window behind the guy. But then she gets pulled out the other side in a very aggressive way. I thought that was well done. And then when I realized it was her later on, I'm like, oh, that was a cool sequence. I like the way they did that.
Yeah, when they did the flash, like, did you even take my blood or just flush it down the toilet? I was saying, he was like, who is this woman? Who is this person that's being kidnapped right now? Because I even had that for a second. Like, I knew it was the taxi driver, but when they went to him, he didn't have his hat on and he didn't look unofficial. So, like, he was in a tank top. His hair was super frizzy. It's like, these people look a lot different when they're at their day job here. But yeah, I was the same as you for a second. I did not know who it was. And that was a fun little montage of Amanda going around getting everyone. Got Mateo at the vet, got her there, got I really enjoyed Cecilia's capture because I feel like they kind of lost that. I feel like they did that with Rig in 4 and they did that with Saw 1. But there's not too many times with Saw they're doing like the no music, suspense, something's gonna grab you, because that's not what Saw is. It's the torture porn. That's the thing. So I loved the no like score or anything, just silent. When she's like looking at the video and on the roof, you can see just Amanda walk by. Like I was digging all that shit. I was like, this is like really good. I know exactly how the scene's gonna play out, but it was working. I don't know why I meant it just had to like drop a cinder block. I don't know what that really did, but alas, I really liked the scene. I thought it was good tension build up. So.
Just to touch back on the trap with Valentina, there is a brief scene, like obviously the build up when she's like one saw just screams, second like movement screams, but then there's another moment where she's just like, and you hear the sound effect. She's like, shh, like she fucking hustles. It's like, oh, this
Looking
is
like
just
Hereditary and
horrible.
Tony
yeah,
Collette.
definitely.
God damn.
Yeah.
But just to talk about Monty's trap a little bit there too. When he dabs that first like little drill right into his head, I feel like you can't feel it obviously with how excruciatingly painful it is, but I feel like you can like twitch in regards to like, oh my god, like because even how he reacts to it, just brutal.
And because he's not on, like, it's not numbed, right? Like he can feel that.
He can
correct?
feel that exactly, yeah.
And that's where you guys suspend your disbelief, because to me, maybe I'm wrong, because I know people do like they do barrel holes, I guess, on people. I just feel like if you were to remove a piece of your skull cap and your skull, you would pass out from the pure pain and shock. I know you might get adrenaline. I don't know. I'm not a surgeon, because like I said, they do barrel holes all the time when people are in pain and they drill holes in their brain. So maybe that is the thing. I just like to have that function, and especially even after the brain, I feel like you would easily pass out, and hopefully I would pass out, because then I just like die in my sleep.
I thought he was gonna drop his like brain piece and miss the container.
I thought so too, actually. The way they shot it,
suck.
I thought, and I kind of wish they did that, because they already had Valentina like win her game but didn't complete it in time, and he was the exact same thing. So I thought, is this going to be every game where they just about to win? So I kind of wish he did drop it, but either way, result was the same. Monty and Mateo didn't make it.
Yeah, I guess I wonder. I'd have to think like in the part of the brain that he grabbed, like which obviously wasn't the motor cortex, or else maybe
Oh,
it messed
man,
with his
that
hand or
sucked.
something.
He just-
grabs
he
the
just
wrong
falls.
spot, and he just can't. His arm just stops working. But yeah, I wonder which part he was messing with, because like he kind of was acting the same. I mean, he wasn't alive for very long at that point. But I believe that there's no like actual nerves like on your brain itself, so he probably didn't feel that part. He just, the burning sensation of the hole in his head is probably what he felt.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But also, like, I don't know, if you just tweeze the brain, like, would a part of it just rip off like that? Like, is the whole thing not still connected? Like,
I think you could get because he did have like
going on in this episode.
he did have like I think with your hands no, but remember he was using like metal pliers. So
okay,
I feel
so
like
maybe
you could
like, snipped it a bit.
yeah. I think you could get something there. And you know what? It's funny because like obviously this movie happens in the past, but it's kind of a good little tribute to in Saw 3 when John Kramer gets like his own brain surgery and they gotta like reveal the pressure off his brain. So that's like a fun little tribute to go back and forth. Like, okay, that's maybe got some inspiration there. But yeah, I get like the brain usually is pretty solid, but I think you could pick at it enough and get something. What? I don't know. Maybe lose your sense of smell. Hopefully feeling. That's because
yeah. I don't know what that would be. And then what is the other one? I guess the other one would be the
taxi driver.
The taxi driver. I guess I kind of forgot about that one.
Pipe
too.
bomb.
I mean, we actually have a bunch. There's still a bunch more to talk about. But yeah, the taxi driver one. I feel like that one, like, obviously these all suck, but that one's not too bad, really. When you compare it to Matteo, you compare it to
I guess
Valentina once again. Like, definitely an improvement there. Like, you don't actually lose any limbs; you just lose some skin, and you lose a lot. It's not great. So good for him. He made it through that. I guess he did pretty good. So.
Well, yeah, I was surprised that he made it because I don't even exactly know why he did make it because I was waiting for not that he was going to be another Jigsaw guy or something, but just that he made it in Jigsaw. Maybe this was just to establish to people if they were watching Saw for the first time of, oh, when you win, you do win, and he'll let you go because John Kramer just gives him a first aid kit. I at least hope he removed the tape because what's he supposed to do with scalpel hands and the first aid kit? So I hope that helped, but. Yeah, he did win his game. Yeah, that was brutal. This idea, there's a bomb and it's connected to his muscles and his skin. And he says something like, oh, yeah, it's like a cancer. It can be cut out, but you can't just cut the cancer. You got to cut a lot of stuff out. His words are much more better and elegant than I can. And yeah, he literally has to cut through muscle and skin. And that was like just like the prop of when to me, it wasn't the cutting. It was the peeling it off when it was just these shards of skin. I was like, oh, man, that's not, and even then too, like you got to get to a hospital right away. That's a lot of blood loss right there. You might not make it again. So, or a lot of bandages in that first aid med kit because it was a big med kit.
Was that in the same? That's not in the same facility, right? Maybe is it a different room in that? Because it looks like similar generic industrial building, but it didn't.
I thought it was the same.
Maybe a different.
It looked like he had the same. He had the same room with that same door and everything.
I guess so. Hey. Yeah, he did have that window room. Yeah.
Which I want to say before we continue on the traps, I really like that because it reminds me of Saw 6. That's William, and that's the guy who's like the healthcare agent guy, and he like screws John over and won't help him like support his like funding and for healthcare, everything like that. And that was the only time where instead of Billy the puppet on the TV, it was John Kramer speaking. And that's what I kind of like. That lots of these are personal John Kramer, but these are like the real personal ones. So I like that it was you still got the tape, but you just had John Kramer watching you. I think they really did it because they just wanted Tobin Bell to be there acting, and I do like that. There's actually now times where I wish in other Saw movies I do like Billy, but it's like, man, this dynamic's cool too of him just watching and you see his emotions. And again, I love that they hit on because they do this multiple times in Saw movies where he does watch, but he doesn't like to watch. Like there's times where he even like winces and he doesn't like the pain. That's what Hoffman is. Hoffman's the guy that like he fucking gets off on like he likes hurting people. Where that's where I like they stay consistent with. He'll do this, but every once in a while he's like, oh, this is gross. Like, and even if they don't like, even with the Gabrielle thing, it's same thing. It's like there's a part of them that doesn't want to go through with it a bit, but he's still going to. And I think they hit. That's something where I feel like that's where I know people say they're going to watch Saw 1 and then this. I still feel like you got to watch Saw 2 for the Amanda stuff because I love the parallels of her being an addict and John saving her to what Gabriella is. And I love that when I almost call her Cecil. That's someone else. Cecilia kills her. Amanda's really upset by that. And to me, I took that as like Amanda's thinking back in the past where imagine if she won her game and felt renewed and won the second chance at life and then someone just killed her. That's what I think she was actually in so much pain of seeing what her life could have been if John wasn't there. Now, again, I'm not saying Kramer's method is good, but in this context of our characters. So, I really like what they did, the parallels with and Amanda. I like her being like, she's an apprentice, but like really apprentice here. She's really literally just following John around. Feels like she's learning. She's putting in her 2 cents, but it feels like she's still very kind of like they're still at arm's length. She's not ready to take over. Of course, Saw 3, she screws it all up. But I really like that dynamic, and I really like the Kramer watching the whole time. I thought that was a fun. Again, it fits with Saw 6, where this one's more personal to him. So he wants to be there, live and in color. Live and in green color. So.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that. I mean, it's like, let the guy do some acting, like he's a great voice actor too, of course, but let him do some acting, and obviously that's what this movie is all about. But I also felt like it fit really well because, sometimes not all of the people that have been in a Saw trap before are people that John really knows personally. A lot of them are just random people. Sometimes they are, but in this case, it was like very much that parallel of all these people that screwed him over. They all had a very personal role in doing it. Gabriella's like inviting him in and being nice and like, oh, this is my family up on the wall. Like they're all like really like just right in his face, just lying to him about this stuff. So I think it is perfect in that way for him to kind of do the same thing right back to them. So yeah, I felt like that was kind of perfect for the story here. And then also just at this point, 10 movies in, like, let's just let I guess Tobin Bell do some more acting in these scenes, and you can only do so much with Billy. I feel like we've seen enough of the puppet.
Yeah,
I'm always down to see him again, but he's used perfectly here. He does his creepy little rollout, and then that's it.
Yeah, he did it. You got a couple shots of him. That's all you need. Again, my question was how he got to Mexico. Taylor just said he's just making them there in Mexico. Okay, I guess he just brings.
It looks like it's like a paper mache head.
He must be so fucking good at making that puppet.
But does he always have the materials? Like, is he an RPG character who like has like always
infinite
make sure
pockets?
Yeah,
it's like me in
has
Starfield.
enough.
I'm carrying 900 kilos of stuff.
Yeah, you need this amount of wood to make Billy the puppet. And he always has this in like a carry-on bag. Like, no, I need that. But yeah, good for Billy. Let's take an ad break and we'll get back to some traps. We'll be right back. And we're back. So the only one I liked the idea of the what is it, Gabriella's trap. I just didn't love the way it was shot because I think it was tough, but I think the way of them like hitting the arms and the legs, it just didn't really. I never was wincing, and I'm not saying that I have to wince every time, but it just didn't feel. It felt like they were shooting it too much away, and it felt like, which is odd because I feel like they would have just used like a prosthetic hand or something like that. So to me, the intensity, and I also didn't love like the CGI, kind of bubbles going on. So I like the idea of it, but I think there was just too much or too little kind of detail in that trap. So that's one trap I was maybe definitely kind of the bottom for me as far as just more execution, not the idea behind it, but.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I also feel like pacing wise, it was maybe good to have one that's a bit of a breather.
That's fair
as a viewer, and then also like this is the character that I don't want to die, so to have a more tame scene, kind of worked. How do you guys feel about the blood boarding? I don't know what the fun Saw name would be for.
I think
that.
it's bloodboard, yeah, because it's like waterboarding, right? And then
that's the one that Cecilia. That's her little quip in there.
Bloodboarding, yeah.
I like the idea, obviously, of these two characters. Supposed to be here and kind of the fighting back against each other, and of course the plot twist we can talk about later on. But I thought it was decent. I like the mechanics of it, but I guess I felt like it got a bit old of like the just blood squirting in their face, just because it's kind of a lot of the same.
It wasn't. The way I take it is that wasn't actually for Cecilia and her guy, right? Like that was, I believe that trap.
Amanda, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't.
Well. I think it's of two ways because John Kramer's always predicting the human mind. Because I think it could be because Kramer says to Win, what the hell's that guy's name? Is it Terry or whatever the other fake guy is? Because we get revealed. Is it Teddy? Is that what it was? Oh, I think you're right though. I think it was Teddy. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think it's Teddy.
Okay, let's find out. But anyways, they reveal there's a guy that had throat cancer. Obviously, he did not have throat cancer. He was just a setup.
Parker Sears.
Okay, so
Parker. I remember the name Parker. Yeah.
They sit him down and they do the classic because this I knew something was up. They do the classic John Kramer's like, don't use your gun. That's your one rule. And he did say by the end of the night, you'll get to have like a confrontation with her. I do believe if Sears the whole time just played by John rules, it would have been them in the bloodbath trap. And I do think even though he's saying like it would have been a kill off, the way I look at it is there's traps like this in Saw 5 where if you work enough together, you can beat the trap without killing one another. And that's why I would take, in my mind, they didn't say this, but I'm headcanon just on other things they've done trap-wise, that if you do something where there's this amount of blood, and if you both take turns, you can get rid of the blood and survive together. That's how I think it would have worked. So I think it was if he plays the game, they're both going to end up in this trap, Sears and Cecilia. If they don't, they're going to end up there, and one of them has to die. So I think it was set up for both, either John or Amanda, or Sears and Cecilia, which is a weird.
I don't know, because
combo.
it's not out of not context. It's not out of the norm for John to be like, "Hey, Amanda, you're gonna go partake in this."
Oh,
trap,
yeah, no.
Right? So, and that same I think applies for him. Hence, in the first Saw, he wasn't really in the trap, but he was a part of he was one of the ornaments, I guess you could say. But
ornaments. I'm gonna be an ornament right here.
I don't know. It just feels. To me, it feels like the thing was the whole time set up just to lock them in that room. That was their game, which I love when he just grabs the bag, or sorry, Cecilia grabs the bag, and the clock just starts ticking right behind the bag, and the music kicks in.
That's the thing though, because like you got to think about with John Kramer's way. Let's say they just go through with it. Cecilia's still chained up. Like let's say they don't pull gun. What do? Right? So that's why I think this trap is still a double usage, because then if they just play, it's like, well, we got to test them somehow, or do they just get to walk away?
He knew the gun was gonna get pulled, though.
I know, but I'm just saying, by chance, let's say Sears doesn't do it. What would he do?
Sears joins Kramer. I want to join you. Like,
I was a little worried. I said this to Taylor when he was just sitting down watching. I'm like, man, are we gonna have like the sixth secret apprentice that like John converted this one weekend in Mexico, and they're gonna do a spinoff with Sears in Mexico? But I think they made it both ways. For if they play along, this is for them. If they don't, it's for us. And I actually really like, kudos for him for actually doing it, because at the first that was stunt double, but like seeing Tone Bell and John Kramer like covered up in blood with there's been a franchise that so much other people covered in blood. Like I think that was some good kind of imagery finally to kind of get his hands dirty. And talk about making him a hero, man. Like I liked it, I was fine, but they really went overboard with him like caring about this kid, like him, and like this felt like this was his grandson. Like he was like, no, don't put, like he looked like a superhero in this last act. So but again, it adds to John Kramer's he's a weird guy, right? He only wants people punished if they're not innocent, right? So
I found that element of it a bit cheesy, just because when it happened earlier in the movie, when he helps him fix his bike, and he's like, he's trying to find out the word for pull, and I'm like, what are you even doing in this scene? Like I get the bike is like in a clamp, and I guess you're like pulling on it, but like, it felt like that was the best they could do to come up with a way where he would learn their code word for Havala, or for to pull Havala, so they could coordinate with each other later on. It was a little contrived, but I don't know. Yeah. I kind of like it because it's like that perfect amount of Saw cheese for me, but it was definitely kind of silly.
Which really, then we just found out that you don't have to tell him that, because John could just hold the lever down. It's not like a back, like you never once had to tell him not to pull. Really, you could have just held it. So it was, I guess,
really, if he passes out or something, then he kind of maybe that was the backup plan there, but.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I still think that trap was probably designed for them to both kind of win. And I was the same way. Like that's where at least I've seen enough Saw movies that when that popped up, I knew they were not safe in the room, because when he already said the line, I was like, oh, who would have been the other person? That's when I knew, okay, the jig is up for these people. Like it's over for them. And then it was later. Yeah, the jigsaw's up. So
I was just gonna say, imagine being a kid and you know like 2 words of English, and this woman who is nice to you just brings you in, and it's like it's just completely fucked up. In the kid's eyes, the kid sees the guy who is very nice to him and kind, patient, fixes his bike, is chained up. So to him, the kid sees Cecilia as the complete bad guy in this whole scenario.
On all the bodies on the ground too. Like
it's just this. Even Amanda's chained up. So for the kid, they're the victims. So
I gotta say, like, obviously this part of the trap was misplanned. They fucked up here. How, like, as we saw with what's his name? I can't remember the goddamn name. Parker. When Parker showed up, like, the door was just open, and he just walked in, and then obviously he had to like move around a little bit. He shot the pig head and whatnot. But like that kid was still in the neighborhood, obviously, and he was not in on the plan. he could have walked into that building at any point. I feel like they should have. I mean, obviously they didn't want to lock the doors because they wanted Parker to come here, but like they know the kid lives, in the neighborhood and is familiar with this area. Like that seemed like a pretty big miss on their part.
I think they locked it after they got Parker because remember she gets the kid, not the kid comes in. So you could headcanon it. That's what I do. Like that the doors were locked and she unlocked them to go get this kid and brings him in. But it still doesn't matter. Still a huge risk overall, even if anybody walks through there before Parker, because which I was happy they explained that because I was very confused how he got there and everything that was going on. I was like, none of this really makes sense at all. He's just showing up. He's asked for his money. How does he know these people are here? Like, what's the timeline of this all? But of course, the flashback magic they showed that Amanda texted him, and
John Kramer uses like the suns and stars to create like his trajectory of where their base is. And yeah, this guy Sears just knows where to go.
Protractor, yeah.
Oh yeah,
crunching some numbers. That was some good stuff.
He can't be stalked, John Kramer, man. He'll find you. Doesn't matter. You drop him off in the middle of Mexico, and he's gonna find you.
Horror movie Batman. That's what he does.
He didn't even break a sweat too when those guys had guns on him. John Kramer. Like he wasn't even worried at all. He was ready to take down these guys and put them in traps.
So what happens with Cecilia at the end?
I guess she's a survivor.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, the door. Do we presume it gets unlocked and she's free to go?
Yeah, I think so, because I don't know exactly where it happens in the timeline, but I'd imagine it's not too far along after, because in Saw 2, the whole world knows that John Kramer is Jigsaw, so I don't even know when that gets found out, but if it's even a couple weeks, it doesn't even matter if she gets out and says, like, oh, this guy locked me up, John Kramer, because everyone would be like, well, yeah, we know this, because, he just kidnapped Eric Matthews, all these characters, so,
seems like there's like a fine line where it's, like, he really should just break his rule and kill this person no matter what. I feel like you make an exception for this person.
She won, though. That's his game, right?
Yeah.
You get your life. I did, though, think that when her head was in that thing, I thought something was going to wrap around her head. And that's what I thought. I thought that drawing he was working on was going to be that thing. That's what I thought. I'm like, oh, here it comes. But no, he let her live. She won the game, right? She killed that other guy, and... she's out there somewhere coming back for Saw 11. She wasn't in the sequels.
You got to leave someone for the sequel fodder for sure.
Exactly, and she's a bad person, so.
The other thing, so this was something that I couldn't hear correctly because of the sound mixing going on, is I'm just trying to picture the timeline of all this. So at some point when I believe it's like right when Kramer like gets the thing locked around his neck, and she makes some comment about like, you're Jigsaw, or like, what did
Jig fucking Saw?
So I guess is at this point in reality, is Jigsaw like a known thing, or did she like?
Yes.
Okay, and she's just putting two and two together because she saw. I guess she's seen the traps now, and she saw Billy the Puppet, and she just is making that connection in real time.
Because even in Saw 1, Jigsaw's like a known thing. It's quieter now. The fact that I don't buy that he's like worldwide known. Like they get that way in the sequels where it's like the entire world knows Jigsaw. Saw 1, Dr. Gordon's just like, I know this guy, like he's a serial killer, but he hasn't killed anybody. Like it's just like it's going throughout wherever. They never say where it takes place in Saw, but let's just say it's New York, right? It sounds like okay, it's starting to spread a little bit. I don't know if it's worldwide, but I guess that's the idea that it is, at least in Saw 1 they do mention that it's known, and then Saw 2 officers, SWAT teams, and
based off her comment, like did she know that about him before doing the whole trick on him? Because that's where it seemed like maybe she knew that he was up to something before they even brought him into the whole scheme, and that's where I was maybe thrown off a bit.
I don't think so, but I think the way they wrote it dialogue-wise, I was like you, they made it seem like that. They made it seem like she found that out.
See that with subtitles again and just like really pinpoint.
But I think they were trying to insinuate that she like figured out after the fact. Like when
I don't think that's a risk you take. Like let's do this major con on an unhinged serial killer.
So like to me, I was like at first when I thought that's what they were trying to put down, no, this is like this is a leap too big for me. Of like we're gonna accept Jigsaw's money. Like no way. This is the one client you say, no, actually this cocktail doesn't work. We found out it's bad results and everything. So yeah, I think that was just some messy writing, but I think it's just she found out here that he was Jig fucking Saw, which I think they said that in Jigsaw, and I think there's another movie too. They love saying Jig fucking Saw. I don't know why, because it never sounds cool. Just call him Jigsaw, you know?
I think it sounds cool enough.
Does it? Okay, there you
Cool
go.
enough. Yeah.
I'm alone.
I guess I'll put another question I had was during the surgery sequence, John Kramer can obviously see the screen, and then at some point they turn it. Like, did they want intentionally for him to see part of the screen and then for them to turn it?
Makes it more believable.
I don't know why they wanted him to intentionally see the nurse look down and go, and then like this nurse.
Like, oh my God, wouldn't it have the same effect if like you can see that the one guy is like cracking away on the numbers, but you can't necessarily see what's exactly on the screen? Like, why tilt it then? I don't know. It's like
even then, why? What also is weird, they tilted like, "Okay, we're gonna put you under now, John. Why don't you just put him under while he's still watching it?" You know,
well, they wanted him to. I think that they wanted him to see the screen. They wanted him to do is like move your hand and whatnot.
Or did they tilt it because the video was gonna like run up because it was obviously a pre-recorded video and there was like maybe 10 seconds left on it. Was that what it was?
I think so, but why aren't you timing that for you showing the video and mid-video? That's when you put the gas on him, because they put the gas on him to knock him out. So I think it was like a weird little no, but it was at least on purpose just for him to see it, so he would think that he had the brain surgery and stuff. So that's what they wanted him to think, and he thought that for a mere, I don't know, 24 hours maybe. I don't know. He was already also like. Again, too, not even him leaving. I don't know this for sure, but I would think like extensive brain surgery where you're removing a tumor. I don't know if he'd be up and about with he has no pain. He's up and about. Like, he wouldn't have questioned this sooner until he like takes off the bandage. Like, and this one bandage was supposed to last him for it just felt a little easy, but it's fine. I can roll with it. But
I mean, I guess they got his money. They waited till they wired him as like that, and then they're done. Like they've moved. They obviously go to a new place, and I don't know. I guess in theory, like someone could track them down again by like reaching out and under a fake name and doing all this stuff. But then they do so much research, so there's maybe a couple puzzle pieces missing. But I guess they're working with the people that were conning are gonna be dead soon anyway, so they can only come after us for a certain amount of time anyway.
What happens if the person didn't die? And also, we'll talk about the end credits after, but like Henry, what if you bump into that person and they got conned and it's just like they haven't been dead yet? That's an awkward conversation, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe do they slip in some poison when they're doing the treatment just to make sure you go?
I'll buy you a coffee on the house, and then just slip. Henry has this poison on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked 34 times, I guess. They said everyone else on that list was dead. They did their research, so...
Yeah.
They're pretty effective. They were pretty effective.
Yeah, and then that
crumbling down.
Yeah, exactly. And then that kid got a bunch of money. I don't know how much, but at least probably $250,000 going on. So
it looked like they gave him everything. I don't know, unless they split out.
They must have spent some though, because he said he'd been doing it for 5 years, right? So I guarantee they don't have all $8 million. Hang on, she had a nice house, right? So
yeah, true. Yeah, good point.
I take it as like it's just John Kramer's money,
I think it's just John Kramer's, because you see the bag get like labeled with everyone's names, like Monty's and Gabriella's and stuff.
Okay.
Which is like, yeah, you should keep that for your traps. You're gonna need that. But that's how loaded this guy is. He gave away $250K to some kid, and he's like, I'm gonna go back.
Well, I did some loose mathematical equations here, so I looked at how much architects make. They can make up to like for this equation I did $100,000 a year, and that's kind of like going under the amount. And now we have to take into account, like, I'm thinking, okay, let's from his 20s to his 50s.
Yeah, when we get the prequel, right? The first movie's just about him being an architect. It's like Oppenheimer, but for architects, and then it leads to him being John Kramer, Jigsaw.
20s to 50s, giving him 30 years, he's made $3 million. Now you have to pay to live, so an average American spends like $50,000 a year. And of course, I'm going back a little bit, not in this current time. So
you're saying low
a year.
End. You're saying on average it's 100,000. I'm thining John Kramer is good. Like, look what he does.
I feel like architects can make a lot more than that.
They can. Like average is 120. Like average in Canada is 126,000 per year. So you can imagine how much that is in the States. But I'm just.
And we know he's good. Like, well, maybe we know he's a good engineer. I don't know how good of an architect. I guess engineer.
He's the best.
There's a little bit of crossover, and sometimes he's making some pretty I don't know, technical traps, right?
Yeah.
Over the course of 30 years, he'd be sitting at 3 million, and with if you deduct like living expenses, he'd still have like almost 2 million left, is what I was calculating, like 1.5 million. So he's sitting pretty good.
That's enough to buy the chemotherapy machine. Actually, probably not. Those things are probably
The radiation machine, at least, that he used.
yeah. I don't know. That thing must be expensive.
I was just trying to see how much 120K flipped over to American was. I don't know. It's making.
Were you doing U.S. dollars or Canadian dollars in your math there, Taylor?
I just did American. Lowballed in American.
Oh,
USD.
Okay, so there you go. So he's about through. This John Kramer's definitely high end because there's no way this guy just has $3 million to his name with the amount of properties. Because remember, he also opened up Jill Tuck's rehab center. he bought rehab
about all
center.
the things he's done in his days.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember this in Saw 4. They like said he had like owned 4 properties or something.
Right.
So
He's got a lot of properties.
I think he's a well architect, or he's just somebody who has like a family that comes from lots of money as well too, like that sort of way. You know,
The Kramers, yeah.
Just ruined the family's name, man. They had it set, and this guy becomes Jake's. Imagine that. What did you're watching down from heaven or something? What did John do with all our money? You look down. He's making affiliate puppets. He's recruiting these druggies. You know, he's paying off the cops.
What'd you guys think of that scene when Cecilia was just saying like, "Oh, John Kramer, you're Jigsaw," and he just kind of stood there and like put his hands to his head like he didn't hearing it.
His reaction was pretty funny, actually.
I think he was just playing it up. I think he's just like on purpose, like in character in the movie. He's like, as Jigsaw, I'm gonna pretend to be like, you got me. So then,
or was he ashamed? Was he ashamed?
No, my man's not ashamed to be Jigsaw. I think he was playing it up. I think he was playing it up so they thought they had the upper hand. So they had no idea, like, oh, why isn't he like? If he was cocky, they'd be like, hey, something's up. But they didn't figure out till last second when they pulled that money. So I think he was just pretending them. So,
yeah. Someone we haven't talked about a ton is Amanda, just a little bit here or there. But I had a great time with her in this. I think she is very much the same old Amanda, which is kind of what you'd want from this. She's in it a lot. She's both unhinged, but also can like get down to business. I like the dynamic. It feels like her and Kramer have like a bit of a history at this point, a bit of a rapport, but like he still sometimes will like snap back at her in a way that I found like pretty captivating when he's like, I'm the boss sort of situation. He doesn't say it like that, but it just the way he like digs into her a little bit, and she just obviously respects him so much. But yeah, and kind of what that moment you mentioned too of her reaction to Gabriella and just that whole sequence, whether or not some of that was her, once again, playing it up and faking it or having genuine reactions there. I just thought it was really fun to have her back for as much time as she was. Because, going into this, we heard like all these people are coming back and some of them did, some of them didn't. But I'm glad that she came back and she actually had like a good amount of screen time and got some like fun content to do.
Yeah, she had a lot more screen time than I thought because I knew she'd be there for the captures. I knew we'd seen her, but I thought she might. I think if they play this in a different order, it might be like she captures somebody and then she's gone for a bit, captures somebody, gone for a bit. But really, she was there majority of the time in the trap world, once like that happened. So again, I love that John Kramer just makes a call and, she's on her way to Mexico to help him kill some people. But again, to me, this is like the prime. It's funny, and we'll get to the end credits too. This is like the prime timeline of when like everyone's getting along. They're all on the same page, like before any of the drama happens. And I like, again, like what we talked about before, it's this really master and apprentice scenario. But I love that Amanda's still that plucky, kind of cocky, very arrogant at times towards people. She's joking with that, something Kramer doesn't do, but she's like joking with them of just like, oh, that'd be a good idea, but then you'd be dead. Like just saying these, like Amanda's always sometimes felt like she's somebody that's literally an audience member in the movie, and Shawnee Smith hasn't missed a step. And again, it's one of those things where we got them for 2, really just 3, and they came back together for 6, but it's the same scenario of there's probably a bunch more movies of these two together that we could have, sure, there could have been some diminishing returns, but these two still, for the amount of times they've probably not even worked together that many times, still have such a good rapport with one another. So I was happy to have Amanda here, and I don't know if we'll get another one and what the deal is, but yeah, I think Amanda, she continues to be a fan favorite. So yeah, I dug everything they did with her because they did the perfect sides of her cocky and arrogant, but also broken. And I love that conversation about, again, the prepping of, you're gonna take over, it's gonna be all yours one day, and obviously it doesn't happen. But Taylor, what do you think about Amanda?
I really was not like expecting her to appear, and I again I wasn't expecting some other characters to appear either. I was really surprised, and I was even more surprised at how much time she had assisting, and feeling that her kind of little bit of sentiments towards Gabriella, because there's a little bit of a a mutual, not a mutual understanding, but like a moment of like sympathy or weakness towards her, because she also can relate to that. And then there's just her just undying loyalty towards John Kramer, but then also her conflict that she's experiencing in there as well, in herself. And there's just some dynamics that I really enjoyed, and it makes me want to go back and watch the other Saw films with her character in them, just so I can kind of get to revisit her evolution as being a victim to being where she is now, being a diehard. And I felt like she was very much like, where she does feel like a loose kind of cannon, she also feels like, okay, she's very much like attentive to this plan, attentive to what's going on. Definitely not the person you'd want to piss off when Monty's just like, I don't know, what did he say? Like, I'm gonna fuck you up, you bitch, or something like that. And she just fries this guy with his collar on.
It's true. Right in the face. Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then Manic also got punched too by Cecilia. Cecilia was a big time villain at that third act.
Crazy,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Obviously, there's one more thing, but anything else specifically about the movie?
Yeah, I guess just looking at it, you know, the big like the big plot twist moments, or like those revealing moments. I feel like in terms of the Doctor stuff, or like knowing that this whole thing was a ploy, like that twist, I think we knew from the trailers, or like from the
pretty
synopsis
much. We had an
even, right?
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess the other stuff would be the reveal of Parker, and that being kind of him working with them, and then obviously like the twist as well, that John Kramer and Amanda know about this and they're planning for it. I like that. Even though I was getting to that point where I kind of knew, like, okay, I feel like that even the first time I saw Parker in that when he was on the table, I'm like, something's up with this guy. Like he's definitely coming back, and I don't know exactly in what way. But some of those plot twists I think were a bit more predictable, but I still, like I said, kind of in the non-spoilers, I think it was really fun when everything still clicked together, because even when we're kind of really deep into that reveal and the tides already switched back on Kramer, I still was like, why was this trap designed for two people? Like, what was going on there? Is that a plot hole? Is this an oversight? Did they miss this detail? But then obviously the way it gets revealed, and then I think that where they throw the little wrench in there at the end is clever, with like bringing the kid in there. Of course, we've already talked about that, but I think that was just a nice thing that really throws you off and makes you feel like, okay, John, like he's seen all of this, you know, he's the clairvoyant in that way, but this one detail he didn't see, and how is that gonna affect things? And ultimately, it didn't matter at all for what the actual ending plot twist ended up being. But I know maybe hard right off the beat, and this one's tricky because there's kind of multiple twists, where maybe some other Saw movies kind of have one big, huge reveal. But where do you guys think like this plot twist, these reveals, kind of rank in the Saw saga at this point?
One thing I'll say before I forget, first ever movie to have a kid in a Saw trap. So there you go, you have that. Because I didn't actually think it was gonna happen. I thought they'd collar him up, but I didn't think you're gonna drop blood on him, and it did happen. I was like, wow, okay, good for you. I think like what you pointed out, that most of them, because we don't have any timeline stuff or lore stuff, it's about these characters. I'd say like bottom 3 for predictability, but not for being bad. I think it worked for the story. I had the same thing as you when I saw that guy. I'm like, if this whole thing is a sham, they didn't like, oh, we can't do anything. But throat cancer, we do actually do. I was like, no, okay, this guy has something. Even when he, like I said, when he was there for his money, there was a split second I thought, okay, is he with the crew? But as time went along, I went, no, he's not with our crew at all. That was even before the gun. So yeah, I think I'd put in bottom 3, where I don't think I was ever really, I think I was more impressed by just the consistency of the movie and like how it was shot and the score and stuff, where there was nothing that blew me away. I'm never gonna walk away being like, man, I didn't see this one coming. Because like I said, even when the whole thing was The Room, I already knew that was happening once I saw the trap was built for two. I went, okay, something's gonna happen. I didn't know about the gas. I didn't know about the bag of money. That was really clever. Just to reveal the 10-minute timer, like that stuff was cool. So it's little things, but for big twist, probably near the bottom, I'd say.
Yeah.
Um, I thought he was gonna turn for sure, but I didn't think he was necessarily gonna be a part of Cecilia's crew. I did genuinely believe that he was like, I need my money back, and I was kind of liking the idea of him being swayed a little bit because he was selling it, but I didn't want him to be a disciple or anything along those lines. I like the line when he's like, you or some sick fucks or something like that, he says to them. But yeah, yeah, I definitely wouldn't put it at the bottom tier of just surprises, but yeah, it's probably somewhere in the middle, I would say.
We got Parker in the chat here. Look at that. He showed up. But no, I feel like for me, it's like, the quality of the reveal is maybe lower tier, as Travis said, but the execution I felt like was one of the best. So it kind of, I guess, averages out to be maybe somewhere in the middle, but then the rest of the movie raised it up so much more. I think that's good because I feel like in the last month or two, and I've been talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, what movies you seen? What are you interested in?" And like, there's like nothing that I've really been seeing lately, so I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see Saw when that comes out." And everyone's like, "Oh, fuck, I don't know what's Saw." And,
Saw
and I'm like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That's where I was too, but like, I come to these movies for the twists. The twists are amazing. They're really cool. They're really creative, and obviously, it's kind of buried under this tone that a lot of people aren't going to be into. And so yeah, I mean, it's cool though that I can come into this one and that's maybe not the shining light of this one. That's not the best element of it. It really is like Kramer's story. I think if I had to zoom in really deep on like what is the one core essential element of this thing, it would be something different than I would say for every other Saw movie. And I think that's cool, and it still feels consistent and fits in. Like I'm once again, I'm just so happy that this is this part of these 10 movies. It feels so similar to them, but also carves its own path. It's really cool to see that after all these years.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. That yeah, it feels familiar, but it is doing something new, and that's where something when I just recently rewatched it, Spiral, I think struggled where it was trying to be its new thing, but then a lot of the past, like it almost couldn't decide. It was like caught between two different films. Where this feels very much like the old school Saws, but just okay, we want to shift the focus as we talk about the pacing, the character onto John Kramer and this sort of route. And I'm glad it exists too, because I feel like it is just a good, especially those first 50, 20 minutes, it is just John Kramer. You are just hanging out. I appreciate all the little moments. I like that it is post him already being Jigsaw. So again, you're hanging out with this serial killer while he's just trying to get better, but it all works that's why Jill's gone and his little quips. And again, I like that. Now we have it in canon that John is just like daydreaming about saw traps that he may or may not do, but I like that he's just like, oh, I could do this. Like it's all good stuff. And yeah, sometimes it might be predictable, but it's predictable in the sense of like good story wise, so it's kind of tough when it's predictable and then the story or the characters are kind of lacking. Then you're kind of stuck. So, and luckily that's not it. So
yeah, definitely.
Anything else?
I'm ready for post-credit talk.
Yeah, so we got a post-credit. So we had earlier in the film, Kramer did phone and he said detective, so I knew, okay, we all should know that's Hoffman. Later on in the movie, they did have his voice, so I like that. I don't even know why they didn't have his voice earlier, because, like, we know who this is. Like, we know who he's talking to. But, yeah, the end credit was, so there was a guy at the very beginning of the movie in the, like, kind of cancer support groups named Henry, and he was there talking about he only had a few months to live, and that's how this whole thing, to go back to the beginning, we didn't really talk about him, got started, where John's sick, he sees this doctor, and I was hoping we were going to see Dr. Gordon or something, because they talk about his doctor, and that's one thing I will say, in the Saw franchise, John Kramer said like 6 different doctors because they couldn't get Carrie Elways back. It's kind of annoying. But anyway, so they talked to this guy we've never met. So he's like, John's like, I think like a year, right? And the guy's like, no, you got like months. So he's down and out. He's at some coffee shop and he sees Henry. And Henry's the whole one that gives him this pitch, right? Of, oh, yeah, I had this and, went to New Mexico a little dicey, not FDA approved, but now I'm great and I look good and stuff. So he's the con. He's kind of like the guy that goes and gets the mark. So He's not in the whole movie, but obviously he's a bad guy. He's on the whole movie because obviously he's in America. Well, we show this a little bit in the trailers, and we had heard that there's a post-credit scene. We get those big bright lights. We are back in the bathroom to where it all started, and he is hanging up. He's hanging from his hands. There's some trap that looks like there's no way he's gonna survive this thing. There's like 6 things that are like knives that are like at his stomach. Because I forgot to say, he showed Kramer his scar. He had a huge stomach scar, and it's gone.
Look at my scar. He really
in broad daylight at Starbucks.
When they were planning out how that conversation was gonna go, they're like, "Okay, you got to show the scar," and he could just not nail it in the practice round, so he just kind of whipped it out in real time.
Yeah, and then so he's gonna do it because like John Kern's like, "Oh, where's your scar?" And then we hear that nice, sexy, smooth voice, and he goes, "Oh, messing with John Kramer, epic." He said, what did he say? Epic mix-up or something like that, or epic bad luck. And I was like, man, it's just in that fucking stupid Hoffman way where I love the character, but man, they give him some shit lines, and here it was, and. It was a nice little tip of the cap. I had heard that I think that like he was going to be in this, and it sounded like just the end credit scene. God, you cannot imagine my hype for a second when I heard Hoffman was going to be in the bathroom, and I was like, man, if there's something of him getting out, but no, clearly this was, as I said, this was like the golden era because Amanda's on a leash and John and Hoffman are like laughing and having a good time with this. Like this is like the peak era of the Trinity are all getting along right now. They all have this mission. So I think it was a fun little thing. Would I take a Saw 11 and almost flip it where if it was like a Hoffman like John Kramer adventure this time? Fuck yeah, because we got a couple movies of them, but I'd actually be down to do all 3, because in Saw 6 they gave them some scenes, but if they said, hey, we're gonna do Saw 11 and it's gonna be some story about John, Hoffman, and Amanda, give it to me. Like I'll take it. I don't know what the story is, tell it to me. So I think it was like a fun little thing. I was of course hoping for something alluding to like a past the Saw 3D final chapter continuity to see like, oh, maybe we're gonna get like Gordon back, or maybe Hoffman did make it out, but no, we're still in this era, and that's fine. Lots of movies do that, where maybe that could be the next couple films if we get more. It's just in this pocket of a couple months, so sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly don't think I have too much to add. I think I'm in the same boat as you. As fun as a fan of these movies to get an iconic location, an iconic character back. I'm a huge Hoffman fan as well.
Big bad booty daddy.
So it was fun to see, but of course it was like, it was just a little appetizer, or maybe it was a little dessert, whatever you want to call it. It was just it was a little morsel to chew on. I also, going into the credits too, like my one thing that was like, oh, this is a plot hole. Like what happened to that Henry guy? Like obviously he had to be in on it, right? That wasn't just all luck. So I'm glad that they answered that there. So yeah, it was fun, and also one guy in my theater like popped off when Hoffman was on screen. So I was like, shout out to that guy. This guy's a Saw fan for sure. Not many people. No one else had really. There was people who had reactions like when Amanda showed up or when other certain reveals happened. But like there's only one guy who popped off when Hoffman was on screen. So.
If you're pulling for Hoffman, yeah, you're a diehard, because that's at the end of the franchise when people started to taper off, and because I know there's a group of people that don't like Hoffman, but we here are big Hoffman fans at GeekVerse.
So
he's a great character. Taylor, what do you think about seeing the big bad booty daddy back? Go back to the retros. We had a good time reviewing Hoffman and talking about him. He's such a character. Again, another actor I wish would like. Could some comic book film just cast him as like a goon, like henchman number 1? Like, how Razor Fist was? Like, how has he not been in like, please, Matt Reeves, cast him as some fucking goon in the Batman. I would think about the nightclub, like Penguin's nightclub, fucking Costas Mandalore. He would fit right in, man.
Such
like
a cool name, man.
Oh, I know, man. Costas Mandalore.
His picture on IMDb, like he looks like Nathan Drake, just hot off an adventure here. He's got his like jacket on.
I've said this to Emily so many times. I said, if any of these Geekverse films hit and we can start getting real actors, I'm fucking getting. I don't care. He's my number 1 draft pick. I want to work with that dude so bad. He just has this aura about him. And go look at his IMDb. I checked after Saw when I rewatched them all. He is working. He did like 14 films last year. They're all like straight to DVD, like cheesy bad horror films.
Right.
But you see how much stuff he's movies in. It's
7 movies this
crazy.
year. Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, man, Costas.
31 upcoming projects.
Yeah, 31 upcoming projects. My man loves to work. There's no way, if we get enough, we got to get a GoFundMe. There's no way this man won't listen to a pitch from us like, hey, let's do something with you, Costas, man. We fucking love you over here. So again, somebody please, Marvel, Star Wars, DC, cast him as a goon. Just a bad guy.
He's too busy, man. He doesn't have time for that. He's busy doing Butch Cassidy's Forgotten Outlaw and Drug Hunter and all these other great.
He's doing a project called Drug Hunter.
Yes, he sure is.
Oh man, we would never do it because
African Mystique, Circle of Threes, The Unearthly. He's got a whole bunch of wild projects.
We'd never do it because the views would be the lowest ever. But I hope one day if there's ever a full-time job, man, I would love to do a Costas Mandler retrospective and watch all these fucking probably shitty ass movies. But he's given 110%. But Taylor, sorry, what do you think about seeing Hoffman? Do you think it was a worthy post-credit? Should they just put it in the movie? Like, where were you on that?
I think it was a worthy post credit. I liked hearing his voice earlier as the detective. I thought that was very cool, and I thought that was all we were gonna get at that point. I thought, oh, we probably weren't gonna get anything else for whatever reason. But I'm glad that they subverted my expectation and they delivered. I think it was a very fitting post credit scene because I really was wondering what was gonna go on with that character that had like the stitch mark and what was gonna happen there. So. Yeah, it was a really, really a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. And I'm very, very happy that they included it. And if they were to continue off of that story at all, then yeah, I'd be down for it. And it's unfortunate. Hopefully people don't leave the theater right away. Hopefully they stick around and they can watch that because some people in our theater were just fucking out of there. And it's not like it's like the whole credits roll and then the scene clicks. It clicks pretty fast. Yeah.
But would they even know who he is? They're just like, oh, it's just some dude,
I guess that's the downside too. If you do watch this as like the technical Saw 2 before you get to those later Saw movies, if you're doing the cohesive watch marathon,
chronological,
the chronological, I think then you unfortunately get spoiled, and I think you alluded to that earlier as well.
Yeah, with Amanda for sure. Because they say it takes place between Saw 1 and 2, but if you watch this before Saw 2, the twist of Saw 2 is Amanda's the apprentice. So it's just it's like the Vader Anakin thing of like, yeah, episode 1 is Anakin, but if you watch it in order, that's like when I showed Gwen, I showed her, the original trilogy first, because there's no like Darth Vader being the fault, like there's no twist to that if you watch the prequels first. So I think that's only a watch order you can do as a current fan, someone that's already in there, because again, it's, I guess someone's first Saw, they'll watch this, and then when they get to Saw 3, they'll be like, oh, I know that guy, he's a bad guy. So like, I guess it does ruin 2 twists, but again, I think it does specifically say Saw 10, right? Like it's not, it is meant to watch after. So anything else?
No, we've done it.
Any final thoughts there, Dylan?
No, I mean, I think I've kind of said it all. I really need to, I think, do some rewatches of some of my favorites there to really determine where this would go in my ranking. I feel like it at least shoots up fairly high. They're definitely above like that bottom tier that I mentioned at the top. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that pool from like 3, 4, 5, 6 like really kind of melds together in my mind.
Yeah.
So I do need to do a rewatch before I can do any sort of ranking here. But it feels great to have another Saw movie that I really love and one that I want to rewatch again, because when Jigsaw, like, that was such a big fun part for me going through all those movies for the retro, was like, I want to watch this and I immediately want to rewatch it, which is not something I do very often. 7, Jigsaw, like into Spiral, like, I don't really care. I don't really need to see these again. But this one I definitely do, and not that, once again, because the plot twist is not as maybe intricate as some of those earlier movies. It's not even just for that purpose, but just because I want to get into the minds of these characters and see some of these scenes again. So yeah, I loved it. Such a good time. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, where I am, it's tough. I'll have to, like, it's not do rewatches because I just rewatched all 9 last week. I think it's just I need to stew on this one a bit more. And like I said, for me, it's definitely top 4 right now. Nice. I don't know. Yeah,
your top 4 is 1,
so,
6, and what else is in there?
it goes. So I'll do mine. So it's 1 to the bottom. So I got Saw 1, 6, 2, and now I think I'd put X there. Saw
Okay.
4, 3, Spiral, 5, 3D, and Jigsaw's at the bottom. I think as of right now I got it in 4th place. I think there's some aspects that are a bit more rewatchable with like 4 and 5 or 4 and 3, because they do the whole you wake up, you're in a trap right away and you're going back. Like I think there is this one you have to stew on a bit longer. It's not that like, oh, if I want one of the fun Saws, this isn't it. And that's not a bad thing, but this isn't like we're in for the Saw adventure. This is a bit more of like a character study, but luckily I like the characters. So yeah, I think that's where I got, but I don't think it would go any higher than that, because I think, again, the unpredictability of some of those other ones, that's just a factor that you can't replace. Until you're into a continuity where you're not in a prequel, you can't, even rewatching them, I know it now, but still that of the characters finding out and the twists, and they do that montage that has like 6 films, like, oh my god, where this, like, you don't get that. The only montage you get in this is just referring back to things in this movie. They don't actually show any clips even from Saw 1, I don't think, like with Amanda or anything, right? So it feels like one of those movies that they didn't have the rights to everything, and they do. So, but yeah, so it's in a top 4. So I think that's pretty impressive for 10. Like it's in the top ones, and we'll see how things go along. But it's majority of Saws I do like. It's just the bottom 4, which is funny because I'm putting this at 4. But even then, no, I like Spiral. So really, just the bottom 3 are a variation of Matt I don't like. The rest of them I've had like a great time with in their own set way. So, and I think right now I'll go like 8.5. I don't think I'm strong enough to do like a 9 or past that. Maybe later on. I think there are a few little things of like, okay, that's always a little convenient. There's a few things just with the time. I think that's too much. There's a few. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. I think, yeah, and it's tough, right? It's Saw 10. These do get sometimes a little predictable, so there's some elements there. So it could maybe climb up, but I feel like I'm comfortable like an 8.5. That's kind of where I am somewhere. So, Taylorfield, how about you?
I'm probably gonna go with an 8.5 as well, because I don't feel like I can do that 9, but I do feel like it's still positive for me, and I'd have to revisit and see how I would have ranked other films prior, and just really kind of sit down with my thoughts on how I'm gonna like place this amongst the others. But yeah, 8.5. It was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it was an absolute great pick me up on the franchise for Saw, and I think that this was a really, really good narrative and a story and a different twist, like we already talked about earlier, where it's focusing on John Kramer. It's not necessarily focusing on the dynamic of, hey, this is a survivor or a victim, and you're following from them point A to point B, and if they survive, flashbacks included, whatnot. No, this is one cohesive narrative, and you really feel like John Kramer is that. Would you call him an anti-hero? Would you call him a hero? He's just really. He's really trying to,
I don't know if I can call him a hero.
He's got.
Wants to.
I always find him such as
he's that kid. Intriguing... That kid definitely. He's telling stories all the time. He saved his life.
He went for a hug.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I always find John Kramer just to be such an interesting character with just the way he tackles things and how, very loosely, he doesn't kill, but it's the people's choice whether they want to live or die. Choice is yours. But
but he always forces them to die, though. There's never like I can just quit. Like even if they just sit there and do nothing, they could die from starvation, hydration.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And like technically he says like I don't kill people, but that would be considered killing, right? If you just tied someone up to a chair and left them there, that is killing a person.
But they have a choice.
Maybe not to him, but
they have a choice to get out.
Take the choice out of that. If they're just tied up there, that's killing. That's murder.
Technically, the food in their system is what killed them.
Yeah.
The
just
lack
nature.
of food.
Just nature.
Yeah, that's Sean on
you
the
could
stand.
Twist it. You could twist it.
If they would have ate more. Yeah.
But I recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. You just tag along for the spoilers. Go watch this movie.
Yeah, after almost nearly 2 hours spoiling every detail, go see it. But yeah, go see it. I want some more. Somehow, with the final chapter back in like 20 something, and in the teens, and here we are 3 movies later, Saw 10. Let's get to Saw 11. That TV show, is it still happening? I don't know. Make it happen. Let's let's bring it. I'm not ready to say goodbye to Saw. So this was a fun one. Let us know in the Discord or on Patreon, YouTube, whatever, Twitter. Let us know what you thought. If there's anything you think we got wrong or you want to clarify, hit us up. Any questions? We can always answer like a newscast segment or something in the future and put a spoiler tag up. So thank you very much for tuning in. When you hear from us next time, it'll not be boring.
Bye-bye.